Welcome to Box Recaps. Today I'm going to explain the movie Pinocchio, released in the year 2019. The movie starts and we see a carpenter named Geppetto, and he has not been able to find any work as of late, so he makes his way to a restaurant, hoping he might get some work there. He comes across some people in there who are familiar to him, but he does not pay any attention to them. He goes to the owner of the restaurant named Moreno, that some of his furniture, especially the door to the restaurant, needs some repairing, and he would be more than willing to do it for him. He also tells Moreno that he's even going to give him a huge discount, but Moreno says that his furniture is working fine so far and gives Geppetto a bowl of soup. When he's on his way back, he comes across a man who's advertising his puppet theater, as he tells the people of the town that he can put a nice entertainment show for them for a very low price. We then see another carpenter named Master Ciliegia is about to cut a single log into pieces, and he's shocked when the log starts moving, and the next thing we see, it attacks him on the legs. This is when he's joined by Geppetto, who sees that Ciliegia is in a state of shock, and asks him what is going on with him. The master just tells Geppetto that he's working on something. Geppetto then reveals to the master that he is planning on making a nice puppet he's going to name Pinocchio, and tour it around the world. Master Ciliegia then goes on to give him the magical piece of wood and tells him to carve this one to make the puppet. Geppetto is really thankful to him for the kindness, and leaves. Geppetto seems to have changed. He now has a new mission in life. He takes the log home and right away starts working on it. He starts carving it into a puppet, and when he's working on it, he's thrilled to hear the heartbeat in it. He goes on to add all the parts that a human body has, and now he has got himself a proper puppet that right away comes to life. He names it Pinocchio, and the next thing we see, he's trying to make the puppet call him Babbo, which means father, and after some struggle, Pinocchio does call him father, and Geppetto goes out in the street and starts telling everyone that he is now a father. Later, he's trying to teach the puppet to walk. However, when his face is turned, Pinocchio gets out of there and starts running like a headless chicken with great speed, and Geppetto is of course not able to catch up with him. He then ends up in an abandoned house, where he comes across a cricket that can talk to him, and the cricket goes on to advise him to be obedient to his father. However, Pinocchio does not like the cricket talking to him, and goes on to try and kill it, but the cricket survives despite being badly injured. Pinocchio then feels cold and sleeps by the chimney. However, when he wakes up, he's horrified to see that he has no feet because he slept near the chimney. He starts screaming, and Geppetto, who is just outside, hears all this. Geppetto gets in there through the window and is shocked to see that the puppet's legs are almost gone. Geppetto then gives the puppet the piece of his mind for running away and then burning his legs, which he crafted elegantly. Pinocchio then begs him to carve him another pair of legs, but Geppetto refuses to do so, telling him that he does not deserve it. Geppetto later agrees, on a condition that Pinocchio is going to go to school the next day. He then goes on to get his puppet, whom he now calls Son, some books for his school. When he is taking the puppet to the school, Pinocchio is distracted by a puppet theater. When Geppetto is gone after leaving him at school, Pinocchio right away goes on to ditch school and makes his way to the theater he saw earlier. The man outside, however, tells him that he cannot enter because he has no money. Pinocchio then goes on to sell his spelling books to the owner of the theater, and they let him in. He goes on to watch a puppet show, and he loves the show. The puppet on the stage right away notices him among the audience, and he asks Pinocchio to join the other puppets on the stage because he himself is one. This is when a big man named Mangiafuoco shows up. He goes on to take Pinocchio off the stage and finds out that this puppet is not like the other puppets. It has the ability to move even without the strings. In the meantime, Geppetto makes his way to the school to pick up his son and take him back home. But the teacher there at the school goes on to tell him that a student called Pinocchio was never seen at the school. He then thinks that Pinocchio might have gone to the puppet theater, and he's worried when he sees that even the puppet theater is now gone. He then goes on to ask around, and a man goes on to tell him that he did see Pinocchio entering the puppet theater, and Geppetto now fully understands that Pinocchio was an elegantly crafted puppet, and the people at the theater must have kidnapped him and taken him away. He then decides that he's going to bring back his son and sets out to look for the puppet theater. Mangiafuoco is seen sitting right in front of the fireplace, and he is in need of burning some wood. He then goes on to tell the others to bring him Pinocchio, as he wants to use him as firewood. Pinocchio is told by the others that he is to be burnt as firewood, and tells him that they have no choice but to bring him to the master. They, however, tell him that he has to be nice to the master in order to be able to win his trust and heart. Mangiafuoco is about to burn Pinocchio when the puppet goes on to beg him to let him go, telling him that his father might be looking for him. Mangiafuoco decides to let him go, but he does go on to burn another puppet as firewood. But when Pinocchio sees this, he tells him that he does not want anyone else suffering in his place, so he tells him to burn him instead of the other puppet. Mangiafuoco is really impressed by how selfless he is, and decides to let go of him just like that. All the other puppets also go on to celebrate this act of kindness, and the next day, Mangiafuoco gives Pinocchio 5 gold coins, telling to give it to Geppetto. On his way home, Pinocchio meets a fox and a cat, pretending to be disabled. Attracted by the coins, they suggest that Pinocchio should try to sow them so that they will sprout into a tree of money in the Field of Miracles, located in the land of the barn owl. They keep talking to him about the idea of having so much money if he does what they are asking him to do. They then make their way to a diner and go on to eat a lot of food, and when they are done eating, they go to sleep, and Pinocchio dreams that he's near the magical tree, and he now has a lot of money. The man in the room then goes on to wake him up, telling him that Fox and the cat are waiting for him. Pinocchio starts walking, and it is in the middle of the night. He hears a voice calling to him, and this voice seems familiar. It turns out to be the talking cricket, and it starts giving him advice again. Cricket goes on to tell the puppet that he still has time. He should get away from the fox and the cat, and bring the remaining 4 gold coins to Geppetto. The cricket goes on to advise him to be very careful of the people who offer to make him rich quickly. Pinocchio, however, tells him that he does not need to listen to him, and that he can go away. The puppet then walks into the forest, where 2 assassins wearing hoods are waiting for him, and he sees them just in time and starts running. He finds a house nearby and starts banging at the door for help. Ghost of a girl shows up and tells him that there's no one home right now. He then begs her to help him, but she says that she cannot help him because she's already dead. The 2 assassins then go on to catch Pinocchio and tell him to spit out the coins right away. They then hang him up on a tree and wait for his mouth to open. This is when Pinocchio realizes that his father was right. He should have been an obedient son, and had he done that, none of this would have happened to him. When Cat and Fox are asleep, Medoro, who is a mythical coachman, he shows up, rescues Pinocchio, and takes him back to his place, where a blue-haired fairy looks after him. The cricket also shows up and goes on to give him crap for not taking his advice yet again. A doctor shows up and examines him. He then goes on to drink a medicine given to him by the fairy. The fairy then goes on to ask him who he is and how he came there at the magical realm. He then goes on to tell her about his journey with the puppet theater. He, however, keeps lying at different parts of the story, and with every lie, his nose starts getting bigger in size, and he does not understand what's going on with him. His nose gets so big that it starts knocking off stuff from the table in front of him, and Pinocchio is shocked. He then begs the fairy to shorten his nose, and she agrees because she too is getting disturbed by that. As he spends his time there, the fairy gets really attached to him, and they start enjoying each other's company. After a few days, the fairy sends him back home, telling him to find his father because he needs him. She, however, tells him to come back once he has found his father, and Pinocchio agrees. When Pinocchio gets back to his town, he again runs into Cat and Fox, having no idea that these 2 were actually the wooded assassins. They again make him go to the fields of magic and tell him to plant a coin right there. When he is done planting the coin, they tell him to right away bring some water. He goes away to fetch some water, and the 2 goons right away steal the buried coins and get out of there. Pinocchio now has lost all the coins. Pinocchio then makes his way to the court where he meets the gorilla judge. He tells him the whole story, and the judge goes on to ask him what does he want now. Pinocchio tells him that he wants justice, and justice will be served when he has his 5 gold coins back. The gorilla judge, however, shocks Pinocchio when he tells him that this is a different kind of court, and in this court, the innocents are sent to prison, and he gives Pinocchio life sentence. Pinocchio, however, does not want to go to jail. He then tells the gorilla that he too has committed a crime, and hearing that, the gorilla tells him that he can leave in that case. Pinocchio returns home, but learns from one of the neighbors that Geppetto has left to look for him overseas in North America. Pinocchio now decides that he is now going to look for his father. Pinocchio makes his way to the shore and dives into the sea, deciding that he's going to swim to North America to find his father. He, however, gets shipwrecked on the island of the Busy Bees. He's saved by the Blue Fairy, now a grown adult. When he wakes up, she shows herself up, and when he sees that she has grown up to be a beautiful woman, he tells her that he does not want to be a puppet his whole life. He says that he too wants to become a big boy like many others out there. The fairy then promises to turn him into a real boy if he studies and behaves. The next thing we see, Pinocchio has started going to school, and one thing is made abundantly clear to him, which is that the disobedient boys are not liked at the school. Pinocchio becomes the most studious boy in his class. Lucignolo, a very naughty boy, is also his classmate, and when the teacher goes on to scold Lucignolo, Lucignolo decides to take his revenge on the teacher. He goes on to leave a frog in the teacher's pants from behind, and when the teacher realizes the creature is in his pants, the whole class bursts into laughter. Taking advantage of this, Lucignolo gets out of there, and Pinocchio also goes on to follow him outside the classroom, and these two end up becoming good friends. Lucignolo, the ever-disobedient boy, then goes on to invite him to come to the land of toys, where children can have fun all day long without schools, rules, or adults, while being taken there by the coachman. After a long day in the land of toys, Pinocchio wakes up with donkey ears and finds Lucignolo has the same problem. They are turning into donkeys. The coachman sells them, and with Pinocchio being sold to a circus. One day, Pinocchio notices the fairy in the audience, trips, and cripples himself. The ringmaster decides to drown him and use his skin for a drum. In the sea, the fairy summons fishes that nibble away Pinocchio's donkey skin, bringing him back to normal. Pinocchio once again swims in search for his father and is swallowed by a gigantic, ravenous, whale-like sea monster. He finds Geppetto alive inside the monster. Taking advantage of the sea monster's asthma, which forces him to sleep with his mouth open, the two flee from his mouth and reach the shore with the help of a big, friendly tuna. They then go on to find an abandoned house to rest in. To heal his father, who has gotten sick from the trip, Pinocchio is hired by a farmer to earn milk. Pinocchio continues to work and study and help Geppetto while he recovers. Pinocchio once again meets the fox and cat, who actually gained their specific disabilities. They want his earnings, but Pinocchio has now learned from his past mistakes, and goes on to say that it serves them right. The fairy then grants Pinocchio his wish. He returns home and shows Geppetto that he has become a real boy. And with that, the movie comes to an end. Subscribe for more videos like this. Turn on the notification and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.